Mom looked me in the eyes and whispered, "Your father isn't who you think he is," then vanished. The last thing my mother ever said to me was, "Your father isn't who you think he is." Then she was gone. Not dead. Not yet, anyway. Just gone. No note. No bag packed. No one saw her leave, and no one saw her after. She left behind a cup of cold tea on the windowsill, a jacket draped over the banister, and a silence that never left our house. That was 5 months ago. I'm not writing this to make sense of it, because some things don't get explained. I'm writing this because I need to tell the truth before it gets rewritten again. My name's Ethan, 31. I live in Richmond, Virginia. And until my mother disappeared that night, I thought my life was boring in the best possible way. I had a stable IT job, a fiancée named Hannah, and a father I saw every other Sunday for golf and tight-lipped conversation. Nothing special, nothing dramatic. But that whisper, that one sentence, cracked something open in me. At first, I thought she meant it metaphorically. That my father, Daniel, had done something she couldn't forgive. Maybe an affair, a betrayal. But the more I tried to piece it together, the less it made sense. The morning after she vanished, I called her cell 10 times. Straight to voicemail. Then I called Dad. "She's probably off pouting," he said, as if she'd just left after an argument. "Your mother has a flair for drama." I pressed him, asked what happened the night before. He got short with me. We talked about some old stuff. Nothing worth rehashing. She'll come back when she cools off. She didn't. 3 days later, I filed a missing persons report. Cops did a wellness check, canvassed the neighborhood. No signs of forced entry. No strange surveillance footage. Her car was still in the garage, keys on the hook. The police asked Dad if there had been a fight. He said no. Claimed they'd spent the evening watching reruns of Wheel of Fortune. Only I knew that was a lie. I'd seen her that night. She'd come to my apartment unannounced, rain-soaked and pale, like she'd just seen a ghost. She hugged me tight, tighter than she ever had, then looked me dead in the eye and said that line. "Your father isn't who you think he is." I asked her what she meant, but she shook her head. "I don't have time to explain. I shouldn't even be here." Then she turned, stepped into the hallway, and that was it. No goodbye, just the soft click of the door behind her. I didn't sleep that night, and when she didn't pick up the next morning, I drove to their house. Her car was parked out front. The lights were off. My father was shaving in the downstairs bathroom like nothing happened. "Have you seen Mom?" I asked. He looked up, blade paused mid-stroke. "Not since last night." "Why?" I told him she'd come to me, that she was panicked, that she said something weird about him. He just chuckled, wiped his chin. "She's always been a little theatrical, Ethan. You know that. Probably upset about something she dug up in her journals." But that wasn't Mom. She was grounded, thoughtful, not prone to vague dramatics. What got me wasn't just her disappearance. It was the lack of reaction from everyone else. The police stopped investigating after 2 weeks. "Adults have the right to disappear," they said. No signs of foul play. No evidence of coercion. They chalked it up to a mental health break. But I knew better. I could feel it in my bones. I started digging. I searched the house top to bottom when Dad wasn't home. Found nothing at first. No note, no planner, no email trails. Then, tucked behind a box of old linens in the attic, I found a box labeled Estate Papers, 1989, the year I was born. Inside were 2 envelopes, both sealed. One had my name on it. The other just read, "In case something happens." I opened mine first. It wasn't long, just a single page, typed. "Ethan, if you're reading this, I didn't disappear because I wanted to. I left because I had to. There are things your father never told you. Things I was never allowed to say. I tried to protect you from the truth, but I can't anymore. Look at the enclosed birth certificate. It's not a mistake. It's real, and it changes everything." Birth certificate? I fumbled through the papers until I found it. A photocopy, old, slightly faded, but clear. Under Father's name, it didn't say Daniel Whitmore. It said Jonas Reeve. I'd never heard that name in my life. I froze. Every inch of me went cold. I must have read it 10 times before I even remembered to breathe. What the hell was this? I took it downstairs and confronted my dad. Slammed it on the kitchen table. "Who the hell is Jonas Reeve?" He didn't even flinch. "Where did you find that?" "In the attic." "Why is my birth certificate different?" He picked it up, studied it calmly, then said, "That's not your birth certificate. That's a forgery your mother cooked up during one of her episodes." "My mother doesn't forge government documents, Dad." His eyes went flat. Well, she did a lot of things you don't know about. I wanted to scream. Instead, I grabbed the paper and left. Over the next week, I tried everything. I ran the name Jonas Reeve through public records, ancestry databases, even old newspaper clippings. And finally, I found something. A newspaper scan from 1991. The headline read, "Local man convicted in fraud case vanishes after sentencing. Suspected ties to government watch list." The photo below showed a man in his mid-30s, sharp cheekbones, curly dark hair. He looked exactly like me. That was the moment I stopped calling Daniel Whitmore my father and started trying to figure out who the hell I really was. And the deeper I dug, the more it became clear. My mother hadn't vanished. She'd been silenced. The name Jonas Reeve haunted me for days. I printed the article, tacked it above my desk, and stared at that black and white photo every night like it might blink back. The resemblance wasn't subtle, it was screaming. Same eyes, same angular jawline, same stubborn set to the mouth I saw in the mirror every damn morning. And yet, I'd never heard the name until my mother vanished. I couldn't stop turning it over in my head. Jonas Reeve. Fraud conviction. Government watch list. Vanished in 1991, the year I was 2. That couldn't be a coincidence. And if it wasn't, then who the hell was Daniel Whitmore? The man I'd called Dad for 3 decades was meticulous, emotionally distant, borderline robotic. He ran his accounting firm like a military operation. He'd never so much as gotten a parking ticket. But now I had to ask myself, what if that whole identity was a cover? What if the man I grew up with wasn't the man I thought he was, in more ways than one? I started with court records. Turns out, Jonas Reeve was indicted on federal charges for orchestrating a massive investment fraud scheme. Real Wolf of Wall Street stuff, shell companies, fake portfolios, millions siphoned. But here's the kicker. After he was convicted, he posted bail and vanished the night before sentencing. FBI issued a warrant. Then nothing. Like he disappeared off the face of the earth. Except, apparently, he didn't. Because my birth certificate, the real one, unless Mom was orchestrating a very elaborate forgery, listed him as my father. And now Mom was gone, Dad was dodging questions, and I was sitting on a secret that made me question everything I ever believed about my family. I started pulling strings. Used some contacts from a cybersecurity client to access deeper public records. I wasn't proud of it, maybe even technically illegal, but I was desperate. And what I found chilled me. In 1992, Daniel Whitmore filed for a new Social Security number in Washington state. The same month Jonas Reeve was declared a fugitive. Same birthday, same height, same blood type, just a different name. He didn't disappear. He reinvented himself. My father, the man who taught me to always be honest, even when it hurts, had built his entire second life on a lie. But I still didn't understand why. What drove him to go that far? And where did my mother fit in? I tried calling him again. No answer. Not even voicemail this time. Just the cold beep of a disconnected line. So I did what any emotionally unraveling son would do. I drove back to the house. It was just after 10 p.m. when I parked in the cul-de-sac. Lights were off, but his car was in the driveway. The porch light flickered weakly, the way it always had. Dad never cared about small repairs. I rang the bell once, twice. No answer. So I used my old key. The door creaked open like it had been waiting for me. "Dad," I called out, stepping inside. "We need to talk." Nothing. Just the tick of the wall clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator. I walked down the hall to his study. The door was ajar. Inside, the desk lamp was on, casting a narrow beam across papers, all perfectly arranged. But he wasn't there. What was there, though, was a manila folder. My name was written on the front in my mother's handwriting. I froze. Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside were 5 documents. A letter addressed to me. A photocopy of an old passport, Jonas Reeves. A black and white photo of Mom, much younger, holding a toddler I knew was me. A hospital record from 1989. A sealed envelope labeled, "Do not open until you're ready to know everything." I sat down, heart pounding, and unfolded the letter. "Ethan, if you found this, I'm probably already gone. And if your father hasn't told you the truth by now, he never will. Jonas Reeve is your biological father. But he's also the man I once believed I could save. We met when I was 22. I was a paralegal. He was charming, brilliant, and completely unhinged. He didn't just manipulate systems. He manipulated people, me included. My throat tightened. I kept reading. When I found out I was pregnant with you, he told me he'd already prepared a way out. Said we could disappear, start fresh. I was terrified, but I believed him. Until I saw what he was really capable of. When he ran after the trial, I didn't go with him. I went to the authorities. I made a deal. Gave them everything I knew in exchange for a new life for you and me. But Jonas found us. And instead of revenge, he asked me to protect you. I stopped. What? He asked her to protect me? I read on. He said the life he lived would swallow you whole if you ever found out. That you needed a clean break. So I agreed. On one condition. He had to disappear completely. We buried Jonas Reeve that day. And Daniel Whitmore was born. I felt sick. He hadn't reinvented himself alone. They did it together. I didn't plan to stay with him. But when the authorities refused to fully erase his record, we had no choice but to pretend. Over time, pretend became real. Real became tolerable. But I never stopped looking over my shoulder. And I never forgave him. When I finally decided to leave, I knew he wouldn't let me walk out unless I warned you first. The letter ended with one final line. If you're ready, open the second envelope. But be warned. Once you know what he did to disappear, you won't see him the same way again. I put the letter down, my pulse hammering in my throat. Somewhere deep in the house, a floorboard creaked. And I realized I wasn't alone. I stood there, completely still, every hair on my neck rising. Another creak. Closer this time, somewhere past the hallway, near the old guest bedroom. I didn't say a word. Just slowly slipped the letter and documents back into the manila folder, tucking them under my arm. Then I reached for the envelope. The one that said, "Do not open until you're ready to know everything." I didn't open it. Not yet. I moved quietly, inching toward the hallway. My breathing shallow, ears straining for the next sound. The house was too quiet. Not the kind of silence that comes with sleep. The kind that watches. I passed the living room. Nothing. But when I stepped into the kitchen, I saw it. A coffee cup on the counter. Still warm. Steam rising gently like a ghost exhaling. Someone had been here. Maybe still was. I gripped the folder tighter, walked backward toward the front door, one step at a time. I didn't care if it was my father or a damn shadow. Something in my gut screamed I wasn't supposed to be here anymore. As I reached the door, a voice cut through the dark behind me. "Leave it alone, Ethan." I turned. Dad stood at the end of the hall, half in shadow, arms crossed. His face was unreadable, not angry, not panicked. Just hollow. I said, "Leave it alone." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth had gone dry. He stepped forward. Slowly. "You shouldn't have come back here." My throat tightened. She came to me. The night she disappeared. She told me. "I know what she told you." His voice was flat. Like he wasn't surprised. Like he expected her to. "She left because she couldn't handle the truth anymore," he said. "She always had a soft spot for fantasy. Fairy tales. Heroes and villains. That's how she coped." I shook my head, voice trembling. "She said you're not who I think you are." A pause. Then the faintest twitch of his jaw. "And what do you think I am, Ethan?" "I don't know," I said, clutching the folder. "But I'm starting to find out." He looked at the envelope in my hands. His eyes narrowed. "She left you that, didn't she?" "Yeah." He stepped forward again, but I backed up, my hand on the doorknob now. "I wouldn't open it," he said softly. "It'll only make things worse." "Worse for who?" I snapped. Silence. I opened the door and left. My legs didn't stop moving until I was in my car, windows up, doors locked, engine roaring. I didn't even look back at the house. I just drove. The whole way home. I kept the envelope on the passenger seat like it was ticking. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was past midnight. I sat at the kitchen table for an hour, just staring at it. "Do not open until you're ready to know everything." I poured a whiskey, then another, and then I tore it open. Inside were two things. A second letter, handwritten this time. A USB drive, small and black. The letter was short. "Ethan, this is the only copy. It contains everything Jonas did to vanish. Everything Daniel became to survive. Files, photos, records. Watch it alone. And after, decide who you really believe your father is." I couldn't stay and live with that choice. Maybe you can. My hands were shaking as I slid the USB into my laptop. A folder opened. It was labeled DWH_backup. Inside, dozens of files. Bank statements. Altered IDs. Photos of people I didn't recognize. Documents marked classified. One video file. I clicked it. A grainy security cam video filled the screen. Timestamp: October 14th, 1991. A hospital hallway. Empty. Then, a man enters the frame, wielding a bassinet. My mother's hospital. My birthday. He stops, looks straight at the camera. It was him. Jonas Reeve. He lifts the newborn, me, out of the crib. Then turns, walks out of frame. And just before he disappears, he looks up, smiles, and mouths one word. Mine. I slammed the laptop shut. My heart was pounding so loud, I thought it might burst through my chest. What the hell had I just seen? Was I kidnapped? Taken from the hospital by a man the world believed was a criminal, and raised to believe he was my father? Or was it something worse? Something I still couldn't see. I looked back at the screen. The camera frozen on that frame. Him, holding me, smiling like a man who'd won. And I realized something I didn't want to admit. This wasn't just about my father anymore. This was about me. I didn't sleep that night. The image of him, Jonas, Daniel, whoever the hell he truly was, holding me like a trophy, that smug look on his face, it was seared into my brain. I paced my apartment for hours, every nerve on fire. Not because I didn't know what to do next. Because I did. I needed answers from the only person who might still have them. My mother, wherever she was. The next morning, I called out of work, shut off my phone, and drove straight to the place I swore I'd never go back to, my aunt's house, 2 hours outside the city. My mom's older sister, Linda. We hadn't spoken in years. A quiet falling out. Something about politics, holidays, and a comment about my fiancé that got twisted sideways. But now, none of that mattered. Linda was the only other person in my mother's life who didn't just know her. She understood her. And if anyone had a clue where she'd gone, it would be her. I pulled into the gravel driveway just past noon. Her old red porch swing creaked in the wind. It looked the same as it did when I was 12, only now it felt like part of another life. She answered on the third knock. Same sharp eyes. Same no bullshit energy. Ethan, she blinked. What in the world? I need to talk, I said, voice hoarse. About Mom. A flicker of worry crossed her face. Then she stepped aside. Inside, everything smelled like pine cleaner and old paperbacks. She made coffee. Didn't ask questions at first. Just let me sit, collect myself. When I finally told her what I knew, the birth certificate, the fake identity, the video, she didn't look surprised. She looked tired. I always knew there was more to that man than he let on, she said softly. Your mother used to call him a magician. Not the stage kind. The kind who made people disappear. My skin crawled. She told you. Not everything, Linda said. But enough. Enough to know she stayed with him out of fear, not love. Do you know where she went? She hesitated. Stirred her coffee. I don't. But I think I know who might. I leaned in. Who? She slid a small, dusty address book across the table. Karen West, she said. Old friend of your mother's. Used to work in immigration law. She helped your mom clean things up after you were born. If your mom ran, it's possible she asked Karen for help again. I flipped to the page. Sure enough, a scribbled number beside her name. I didn't wait. I called. No answer. But the voicemail clicked on, and a warm, slightly raspy voice greeted me. Hi, you've reached Karen West. Leave a message, and if it's about someone trying to disappear, you probably already know I won't call back. I left one anyway. I told her my name, my mother's name, and then I said something I wasn't sure I believed. She's not running this time. She's in danger. I hung up. Linda watched me, unreadable. You believe that? She asked. I nodded. Yeah, I do. Because something had shifted. I wasn't just chasing a mystery anymore. I was hunting a pattern. And something told me, whatever Jonas did in the 90s, whatever secrets Daniel buried under layers of fake paperwork, it wasn't over. Not even close. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. You've stirred up something dangerous. Be careful who you talk to. I stared at it for a long time. Then came a second text. They're watching your building. Don't go home. My stomach dropped. I looked at Linda. Someone knows I'm looking. She didn't ask who. She just stood up, walked to the back closet, and came back with an old duffel bag. Take this, she said. Inside were burner phones, $2,000 in cash, and a rusted revolver I hadn't seen since I was 16. What the hell is this? Your mom gave it to me for safekeeping. Said one day, if things ever came back to life, you'd need it. Back to life? I asked. She looked me dead in the eye. Ethan, whatever your father was running from, it never died. It just went underground. And if you're not careful, it's going to drag you down with it. That night, I didn't go back to my apartment. I didn't even go back to Richmond. I drove 5 towns over, checked into a nameless motel under a name I hadn't used since college, Mitchell Black. And as I lay there in that stale room, gun under my pillow, burner phone in hand, I realized something terrifying. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just a man looking for his mother. I was a man trying to stay alive long enough to hear the truth. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every sound outside that motel room door felt like a footstep meant for me. Around 3 a.m., the burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Ethan Whitmore. A woman's voice. Steady, cautious. Who is this? You left a message. Karen West. I sat up, heart racing. Karen, God, thank you. Have you seen my mom? A pause. Then, that depends. Is she safe? I don't know, I said honestly. She vanished 5 months ago after warning me about my father. Since then, I've found forged documents, surveillance photos, a fake identity, and now people are following me. She exhaled. Then I was right not to answer earlier. You need to listen to me carefully, Ethan. What I'm about to say doesn't leave this call. I'm listening. Your mother didn't run, Karen said. She relocated herself under a protective order, voluntarily. She came to me 6 months ago, said she needed an identity purge. What? She wanted to disappear without leaving a trail. That requires money, clean papers, and trust. She paid in cash. She left her phone, her cards, everything. I gave her a name, a new state, and a rule. No contact unless she was compromised. My mouth went dry. Where is she? I can't tell you that. I'm her son. That's exactly why she asked me not to. I felt my anger spike. Karen, someone's watching my apartment. I don't know who they are, but they're warning me not to keep digging. If you don't help me. Ethan, she interrupted, voice tightening. I believe you. But if these people are still active, it means what your father was running from isn't over. And if that's true, your mother staying hidden may be the only reason she's still alive. Silence. Then she added, but there's something you need to know. Something she made me promise to tell you, if the time came. I leaned in, breath held. She told me, Karen said, that if you ever found out who your real father was and still wanted to know the truth, then you had to start where it ended. Start where what ended. Karen hesitated, then said, there's a cabin up in Allegheny County. It used to be a safe house back in the 90s. Abandoned now, but she said everything started there, and everything ended there. It's the one place your father swore never to return. She gave me the address, a set of GPS coordinates, more remote than any place I'd ever been. Ethan, she added, voice low, I can't protect you out there. If you go alone. Understand? I understand, I said. Thank you. We hung up. I sat for a moment, processing. Then I got dressed, packed what I needed, and checked out of the motel. By sunrise, I was driving into the mountains. The roads narrowed into gravel. Then gravel gave way to dirt. I followed the GPS until it just stopped. No signal. No updates. I drove another mile and spotted it through the trees, a weathered log cabin tucked into the hillside, half swallowed by brush and shadow. No power lines. No mailbox. Just a crumbling deck and boarded-up windows. I parked, got out, and listened. Nothing but birds and wind. The door was locked, but not well. A hard shoulder push, and it cracked open with a groan. Inside, dust. Cobwebs. Dead silence. And then, a floorboard creaked. I spun, gun drawn. Nothing. I stepped deeper inside. It was a single room. Fireplace, broken furniture, shelves lined with books too warped to read. But on the far wall, behind a curtain of spiderwebs, was a desk. And on the desk, a tape recorder. Old. Analog. I hit play. A click. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 20 years. If you're listening to this, I'm probably dead. Jonas Reeve. But if you're my son, then there's a hell of a lot you need to know. My knees buckled. I sank to the floor as his voice continued. They never caught me. Not really. Because the people I was working for, they were bigger than the law. Bigger than you can imagine. Shell companies. Proxy accounts. Intelligence agencies that don't exist on paper. My heart pounded. I ran because I found something I wasn't supposed to see. Something they were willing to kill for. And I made the mistake of thinking I could play both sides. I faked my death. Reinvented myself as Daniel Whitmore. and I thought I could stay buried. But if this tape is playing, then someone found me. Or worse, found her. Her. My mother. So here's the truth, Ethan. You weren't just born into this. You were created for it. They wanted a clean legacy, a controllable successor. I said no. I took you. I raised you the best I could, but the shadows never let go. The tape hissed. Whatever you do next, just know this. They're watching. They always have been. And if you go looking for answers, they'll come for you too. Then a long pause. But you deserve to know what they made me do. And just before the tape cut off, the red ledger. It's buried under the floor. I stood, adrenaline spiking. Then I heard it again. Not the tape. Footsteps. Outside. Slow. Heavy. Someone else had found the cabin. The cabin floor was rotting under my boots, but I didn't move. Not yet. Outside, the footsteps stopped. Then came the sound of a boot scraping gravel. Slow. Deliberate. I reached for the revolver. Cold metal. Heavy in my hand. My heart pounded like a drumline in my ears. Another step. Then silence. I crept toward the window, careful not to shift the loose floorboard under me. The one Jonas's voice had just told me hid the red ledger. I peeked through the cracked wood slat. My breath caught. There was a black SUV parked down the slope. Tinted windows. Engine still running. I didn't recognize the man stepping out. He was wearing jeans and a windbreaker, like a hiker, but his gait was too precise. Too clean. Ex-military or law enforcement. He was holding something at his side. I ducked back just as he turned his head. He was alone. But guys like him didn't work alone. I dropped to one knee and pried up the warped floorboard, hard in my throat. Underneath was a metal box. Rusted. Locked. I didn't have time to be delicate. I jammed the butt of the revolver against the latch until it gave with a crack. Inside, a leather-bound book. Faded red. No title. The red ledger. I shoved it into my bag, replaced the board, and moved for the back exit. The cabin had one. I remembered from childhood visits. It opened into the woods behind the slope. But as I reached the door, the knob turned. I froze. It twisted once. Twice. Then stopped. Silence. A beat later, a voice, low, calm, unmistakably male, cut through the wood. Ethan, we don't want to hurt you. I stayed quiet. We just want what your father left behind. Another pause. The tape's a lie. The ledger's poison. Come out now, and we can talk. You have my word. His word? I nearly laughed. These people had been ghosting my life for 30 years, and now they were offering terms? I didn't respond. Just slid out the back door as quietly as I could, ducked into the trees, and started running. Not away from the cabin. Not yet. I needed a vantage point. 30 yards uphill, I dropped behind a thicket and watched as the front door opened. Two men stepped inside. Windbreaker guy and someone older, gray hair, clean-shaven, sharp suit under a hiking vest. Too polished for the woods. Government. Or something worse. They weren't panicking. They moved like this was routine, which meant they thought I'd run, which meant I had time. I pulled out the ledger. No lock. Just a simple strap, looped around the cover. Inside, chaos. Handwritten names. Drawings. Phone numbers. Old company logos. Most of it meaningless to me. But some pages were clearly marked. Operations, accounts, disposals. And one section simply titled, Children. I flipped through, blood pounding. Dozens of names. Dates of birth. Photos paper-clipped beside some of them. None of the kids looked older than 12. And next to each, status codes. A 1, F1, X0. I didn't know what they meant, but they looked like grading systems. Ratings. Assessments. Was this some kind of grooming project? Intelligence training? What the hell had my father gotten involved with? And then I saw it. My name. Ethan Reeve. ID. X0. Next to it, one word in red ink. Withdrawn. My vision blurred. Withdrawn? Had I been part of something? Had my mother pulled me out? That's why he took me, I realized. Not out of love. Out of strategy. He stole me from their system. Raised me in hiding. Then forced my mother to play along. The ledger felt like it was burning in my hands. I looked back down the hill. The men had come back out. One of them was on the phone. They hadn't found it. Not yet. But they would. I slid the book into my bag and started back toward the road, only to freeze at the sight of another figure, blocking the path. A woman. Short hair. Pale coat. She looked like a teacher on a winter walk. She wasn't armed. At least not visibly. But her eyes locked onto mine like heat sensors. Ethan, she said softly. Please. Let's not run anymore. I stared at her. Who are you? She didn't answer. Just said, you don't know what you're holding. I backed up. I know enough. She took one step forward. Not threatening. Careful. We know what you are, she said. My skin went cold. You're not a threat, she continued. You were never meant to be. That's why we let you live. You let me? Her voice dropped to a whisper. But you opened the box. Now they'll come. All of them. My mouth was dry. Who are they? She didn't answer. Just looked at me with something between pity and dread. Run, Ethan, she said. Run before they decide you're your father after all. Then she turned and disappeared into the woods. And I ran. I didn't stop running until my legs gave out. Somewhere along the ridge, maybe a mile from the cabin, I collapsed behind a fallen tree, lungs burning, ears tuned for movement. Every crunch of branches, every gust of wind felt like a warning shot. The woman's words echoed in my head. We know what you are. You were never meant to be a threat. Now they'll come. All of them. What the hell did that mean? And what exactly had my father done that triggered all of this again? I pulled the red ledger from my bag, flipped back to my own page. X0, withdrawn. No context. No dates. Just my name, printed like I was part of an inventory. What kind of people catalog children like assets? And what made me so different? I hiked back to the road, cutting through brush and bramble, avoiding every trail I could. I had no phone, no GPS, just the battered highway I'd come in on and a map I printed back at Linda's. By the time I reached the car, it was dusk. The SUV was gone. But there were tire tracks, more than one set, and boot prints that circled my car like vultures. They'd been waiting, watching. I wiped the handles, ditched my jacket, and drove 5 towns west before I even thought about stopping. Every light in my rear view made my fingers tighten on the wheel. When I reached the next motel, I used the second burner. I called Karen West again. She answered on the second ring. I was starting to think you were dead. I found the cabin, I said. She went quiet. I found the tape. The ledger. I found them. Another silence. Then, did they see you? Yes. Did they touch you? What? Did they touch you, Ethan? Her tone made my skin crawl. No, I said. Why? Then you might still have a shot. At what? She sighed, and I heard papers shifting in the background. You're not the only one. That's what you need to understand. You were part of something. An experiment. A protocol. They called it Cradle. I froze. Cradle? It was a breeding initiative. Intelligence assets. Groomed from birth. Half genetics, half environmental manipulation. Your father was one of the architects. I felt nauseous. So I was a lab rat. You were the control. The one they let go. The one he stole. I ran a hand over my face. He raised me to be normal. He sent me to public school. I joined a chess club, Karen. That was the control. They needed to know what you'd become if you were left untouched. No handlers. No training. Just bloodline and instinct. And what's the conclusion? I asked bitterly. That I'm still a threat? You wouldn't be, she said, if you hadn't opened that box. I didn't know what was inside. Doesn't matter. Now they know you know. Who are they? I snapped. Who do I need to be afraid of? Karen lowered her voice. They're not alphabet agencies. They're what's left after the agencies get shut down. Old money, old secrets. They have their own labs, their own satellites. And if your name is in that ledger, you're not a person to them. You're an asset. I felt dizzy. They're coming, Ethan. And they don't forgive liabilities. I looked around the motel room, my mind already ticking through exits, escape routes. What do I do? You leave the country, Karen said. Disappear. Start over. Like your mother tried to. I closed my eyes. That's not an option. Why not? Because I can't let her live in fear. Not again. Not while I still have a chance to stop this. Karen was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a softer voice. Then you need to talk to the only person who might still have leverage. Who? You said the ledger had a section called Children, right? Yeah. Were there any other names you recognized? I paused, flipping through the pages. My breath caught. There it was. Third row down. Same red ink. Name, Tobias Quinn. ID, F1. Status, active. I hadn't heard that name since middle school. My best friend. We lost touch when I was 13. His family moved overnight. No explanation. I used to think about him a lot. Now I realized he might have never been just a friend. He might have been part of the same machine. I found someone, I said. But I don't know where he is. Karen's voice tightened. Then find him, Ethan. Because if he's still active, he might be the only one who knows how this ends. I didn't sleep. I just sat there with the name Tobias Quinn burning a hole in my brain, replaying every memory I had of him. Third grade sleepovers, summer bike rides, the day he broke a kid's arm in gym class without blinking. Back then, I thought he was just fearless. Now I wondered if he was trained that way. I dug through every database I could reach on the motel Wi-Fi. Social media, old school registries, military records. Nothing on Tobias Quinn. Not after 2006. It was like he'd vanished or been erased. Until I thought to search a different name. His mother's. Sharon Quinn. Richmond. Former librarian. And there it was, an obituary. Died in 2019. Listed one surviving relative. T. Quinn. Classified occupation, Arlington, Virginia, Arlington. That wasn't just a city. That was Langley's backyard. I drove 6 hours through the night, the red ledger wrapped in duct tape and stuffed under my spare tire. I stopped twice for gas. Both times, I scanned the pumps for bugs, the rooftops for unmarked vans. Paranoia wasn't a side effect anymore. It was survival. By dawn, I was parked 2 blocks from a generic office building that matched the address tied to Tobias's last registered vehicle. 6 stories. No signage. No company logo. And 2 men in dark suits sipping coffee across the street like they were playing dress-up. They weren't guards. They were bait. I didn't go in. I waited. Watched. At 8:03 a.m., he stepped out. Older, broader, sharper around the eyes. But it was him. Tobias Quinn. No hesitation in his walk. No wasted movements. He scanned the street twice. Once with his eyes, once with his ears. Then turned toward the coffee shop on the corner. I followed. Waited until he got his order, black coffee, no sugar, and slid into a window seat facing the door. That's when I walked in. His eyes met mine before I said a word. And I swear I saw something flicker, recognition, surprise, maybe even regret. He didn't move. I sat down across from him, heart punching my ribs. Hey, Toby. He stared. Ethan Reeve. You remember. You're not easy to forget. He sipped his coffee. No greeting. No smile. Just cool calculation. Did you come here alone? He asked. Yes. He nodded slowly. Lying's not your strength. Then why ask? To see if you've changed. I haven't, I said. But apparently everything else has. A pause. Then he said, You found the ledger. It wasn't a question. I nodded. He exhaled, long and slow. Then you've got about 48 hours before they erase you. They already tried. Those weren't the cleaners, he said. Those were the trackers. The real ones don't knock. I stared at him. You work for them? Used to, he said. Until they realized I was more useful on the outside. Now I'm what they call plausible deniability. How many of us are there? I asked. Tobias hesitated. Then said, 13. I flinched. Still alive. As of last year. But 2 were reactivated. What does that mean? He looked out the window. It means they stopped pretending to be people. Silence. Then I said, Why didn't you ever tell me? Back then. You were withdrawn, he said. They weren't supposed to keep tabs on you. But you did. I checked in, he admitted. Once a year. From a distance. Just to make sure you didn't go dark. Why me? I asked. What makes me worth watching? He finally looked me dead in the eye. Because you're the only one your father ever defied them for. The weight of it settled on my chest. You know he's still alive, right? Tobias added. I blinked. What? He staged a disappearance. Twice. First as Jonas. Then as Daniel. But neither stuck. There's a facility in Vermont. Private compound. Coded under a fake rehab network. He's been living there off-grid for 3 years. I felt something shift inside me. A fracture of rage, relief, disbelief. You're telling me he's alive and hiding? He's not hiding, Tobias said. He's locked in. Protected. Watched. Maybe even studied. I gritted my teeth. I want to see him. Tobias stared at me. No, Ethan. You don't. Why not? Because if you walk into that facility, there's no walking out. I leaned in. I don't care. He looked at me, long and hard. Then said, Then we'll need help. He pulled a card from his pocket. Slid it across the table. It was blank except for a number. Call this, he said. Say the phrase, Protocol Ghost. They'll know. Who is it? Someone who used to run intake. Before they shut her program down. If anyone can get you into that compound. He stood, finished his coffee. She can. As he walked out, he paused by my chair. One more thing, he said. What? If your father sees you, he might not recognize you. But if he does, he leaned closer. Don't believe the first thing he says. He's had a long time to rewrite the story. Then Tobias disappeared into the city, and I was left with a card, a code word, and the burning knowledge that my father, the ghost I'd chased across my entire life, wasn't dead. He was waiting. I waited 3 hours before I made the call. I parked in an empty lot behind an abandoned strip mall outside Arlington, left the burner phone on the dash, and stared at the blank card Tobias gave me. One number. One chance. I dialed. 3 rings. Then a click. No greeting. Just silence. So I said it, protocol ghost. Another pause. Then a woman's voice, crisp and mechanical. Who gave you that phrase? Tobias Quinn. More silence. Then, meet me at the Union Station lockers. Key 411 is under the left bench. You have 20 minutes. The line went dead. I drove like a fugitive, parked 2 blocks out, walked in with my hoodie up and my hands in my jacket. The station was packed, tourists and commuters flowing like cattle. I moved to the left bench near the lockers. Checked underneath. Sure enough, a key taped under the wood. Locker 411 opened with a soft click. Inside, a manila envelope, nothing else. I grabbed it and walked out without looking back. Only when I was back in the car, parked in a garage downtown, did I open it. Inside, a map. A satellite printout of a forested compound near Montpelier, Vermont. The words Marlowe Sanctuary were printed in the corner. Underneath it, access codes, employee IDs, a visitor schedule, and a note, handwritten on the back of a parking citation. Don't use the main entrance. Approach from the east trailhead. Camera blind spot between 2:15 to 2:45 p.m. Wear civilian gear. Bring no electronics. He's listed under Patient 42. If he talks, let him. But don't let him touch you. I didn't know what that last part meant. I wasn't sure I wanted to. The next day, I drove through upstate New York, traded cars twice, and left everything traceable in a dumpster behind a shuttered Wendy's. By dawn, I was hiking the eastern trailhead into the Vermont forest. Snow still clung to the ground in patches. The air felt metallic, charged. At exactly 2:22 p.m., I crested the ridge and saw it, the Marlowe Sanctuary. Tall gates, barbed fencing, but quiet, almost peaceful. The kind of place built to keep in more than it keeps out. I followed the trail on the map, slipped through a maintenance gap in the fence, and approached the rear access door. It was unguarded. Just a keypad. I typed the code. It buzzed once, then clicked open. Inside, fluorescent lighting. White walls. No sounds but the soft whir of security cams and air vents. I moved like a shadow down the corridor. Past Wellness Center A. Past private rooms. Until I found it. Room 108. Patient 42. My hands shook as I raised them to the door. I knocked once. No answer. I turned the handle. And there he was. Sitting in a recliner, reading a hardcover book with no dust jacket. Gray beard. Thinner. But it was him. Jonas Reeve. Daniel Whitmore. My father. He didn't look up. Close the door, he said. I did. He kept reading. I wondered when you'd come. My throat clenched. You knew? Of course. I left you the tape. I found the ledger. He closed the book. Looked at me for the first time. His eyes were exactly like mine. Then, a soft smile. You look like her, he said. You lied to me. I protected you. You used me. No, he said calmly. They did. I just tried to minimize the damage. I stepped forward. You created a program to breed intelligence assets. I did what I was told. At first. Then I realized what they were turning us into. You mean you? You were never turned. You were made. His jaw tightened. I tried to walk away, he said. They wouldn't let me. So I stole the only thing that mattered. Me. You. I looked around the sterile room. Is this prison or protection? Both. He stood slowly. No sudden movements. Just that eerie calm he always wore like a suit. You think I'm a monster, he said. But Ethan, you survived because of what I did. No, I said. I survived in spite of it. He didn't flinch. Then I said the thing that had been burning in me since the cabin. Who were the other kids? A pause. Then he sat back down. They were prototypes. You were the only one I removed. The only one I gave a choice. I never had a choice. You do now? I blinked. What? He leaned forward. There's a fail-safe in that ledger. Coordinates. A location. They call it the Arkansas. Inside are the original files. Everything. Names. Experiments. Financial ties. The real story. Why tell me this? Because I don't have much time left. And they'll erase me eventually. But they'll watch. What am I supposed to do? He smiled sadly. Burn it all down. Before I could speak again, the door buzzed. Red light. Lock override. Someone was coming. He looked at me one last time. Go. But. Now. So I ran. Through the hall, back out the blind spot gate, into the trees. As the sirens started to scream behind me, he knew they were coming. And he gave me something they couldn't steal. A target. A final mission. The Arkansas. The coordinates were burned into my brain. They led to the Adirondacks, deeper and darker than anything I'd seen. Miles from the nearest town, no trails, no signage. Just a stretch of forest and a cliffside that looked like it swallowed light. The Ark was hidden there, if it existed at all. I drove north with the red ledger wrapped in 3 layers of plastic and duct tape, buried under the floorboard. I ditched the car at a trailhead and hiked the rest of the way with nothing but a flashlight, a canteen, and the weight of 30 years on my back. The final location was marked on the map Jonas left inside the ledger. A cave mouth sealed by steel and stone, carved into the rock like a forgotten wound. At first glance, it looked like nothing. A collapsed mine shaft, maybe. But when I stepped closer, the flashlight caught a glint. A keycard reader, half buried under moss and rust. I pulled out the last thing my father gave me. A thin plastic card labeled Clearance C. It slid in. A pause. Then a click. The metal door shifted inward with a groan that shook my bones. Inside was darkness, so thick it felt alive. I stepped in anyway. The air was cold, sterile. Not damp like a cave. Maintained. This place wasn't abandoned. I followed the corridor, concrete walls, emergency lights blinking every 30 feet. A red arrow painted on the floor. Eventually, it opened into a room. A vault. Rows of filing cabinets. Banks of hard drives. Dustless, untouched. On the far wall, a digital panel flickered weakly. I approached it. The screen came to life. Welcome back, J. Reeve. My blood ran cold. He hadn't just known about the Arkansas. He'd built it. I scanned through the files. Operations, subjects, facilities, transfers. Each folder was a graveyard. The names, some crossed out, others still marked active. And there, under subject records, Ethan Reeve, status, unconfirmed. There were notes, observations, psychological markers, even a draft memo titled Potential Reintegration. They'd been watching me, even when my father swore they weren't. And then, one last file. Encrypted. Marked, contingency. I opened it. A video loaded. It was Jonas. Younger. Harsher. Eyes like fire. If you're watching this, the Ark has been breached, he said. And that means there's only one move left. You either destroy this place, or they use it. He looked directly into the lens. They'll never stop. Because they don't need an army. They just need one more obedient version of you. That's what the control group was always about. Find the variables. Duplicate the success. Erase the rest. A pause. Burn it, Ethan, before they copy you. The video ended. I stood there, shaking. This was my inheritance. Not a legacy, not money. But choice. I looked around the vault. There were fuel lines. Emergency systems. A generator tied to a failsafe. My father had left me everything I needed to erase this place. To erase the program. To erase him. I didn't hesitate. I rigged the fuel lines, dumped every canister I could find into the corners. Smashed hard drives. Ripped out cables. Set timers. And just before I left, I placed the red ledger on the center desk, open to my name. Let them know who ended it. I walked out without looking back. By the time I hit the tree line, the mountain shook. A fire bloomed behind me. Violent, final, bright enough to light up the sky. The Ark was gone. And with it, every piece of the machine that tried to define who I was. I disappeared after that. New name. New country. I send letters to my mother sometimes. No return address. Just a line of truth. I'm free now. Because I chose to be. I don't know if she gets them. But I hope she sleeps better. As for my father, part of me still hears his voice sometimes. Not in nightmares. In choices. In moments where the world asks me who I am. And I remember. Not what he made me. But what I refuse to be.